So is it really possible for a man to be monogamous? You know, we turn on the television and we see all sorts of stories in regards to infidelity and a man's inability to be monogamous. There are some people who will argue that it is not in our DNA to be monogamous. There are some people that say it is not possible for a man to be monogamous. Well, I disagree. I believe it is absolutely possible and actually preferable for most men to be monogamous. I don't believe that most men like the idea of constantly sleeping around with different people. Now, contrary to popular belief, men aren't just these sexual creatures that all they think about is sex. Men are loving, caring, nurturing, sensitive, emotional beings. But yet we live in a culture that has conditioned us to believe that sexual conquest is a gauge for manhood and masculinity. And so what we have to be willing to do is change that conversation and let men know that it is absolutely okay to engage in monogamous relationships. You see, what's been missing for us as men, I believe, and the reason so many of us struggle with monogamy is that we have been taught and conditioned that sex is purely a physical act, when in reality, sex, or making love, should be an emotional and spiritual act. And so if we want to create monogamous relationship, we must connect emotionally and spiritually with ourselves and with our mates. And when we do that, we can have rewarding and fulfilling relationships. And so it is my belief that the overwhelming majority of affairs are never about physical sex. I believe personally that affairs are about an attempt to feel, F-I-L-L, to feel an unresolved emotional need. And so if you look at people that have experienced affairs, either those who have committed them or been affected by them, you will hear that I didn't feel appreciated and that's why I cheated. Or he didn't pay attention to me and that's why I cheated. Or she treated me like dirt and that's why I cheated. You see, all these things are based on an emotional need that's not being filled in a relationship. So therefore the person goes outside of the relationship to try to fill that emotional void. And so for men especially, we have been conditioned not to connect with how we truly feel. We think more from how we think. And so therefore it's difficult for us to connect emotionally, and that's why I think we get involved in extramarital affairs. Because we haven't dealt with the emotional issues that will support us in creating loving, monogamous relationships. And so in my new conversation, what I'm challenging men to do is to recognize that there's nothing wrong with being monogamous. There's nothing wrong with having relationships that are rewarding and fulfilling. As a matter of fact, it's imperative that we do that if we truly want to be happy. But as men, we have to be willing to get out of our heads and into our hearts if we really want to create those types of relationships. So again, what I'm doing is I'm creating a new revolution. And this isn't a revolution of violence or control. It is a revolution of the mind, the hearts, and souls of men around the globe. And what I'm challenging you to do is create a new conversation with me. And in this new conversation, men begin to recognize that it doesn't make you less of a man to be monogamous. It doesn't make you less of a man to say, I love my wife or my spouse. You see, we live in a culture and a society that men are sometimes uncomfortable saying or sharing how we really feel about our partners. Because we don't want to be labeled as sissies or wimps or punks or being whipped. But the truth is, this is my belief, there is nothing more rewarding and fulfilling than finding that right person to share your life with. And that is something we have to be willing to do. And it's not going to happen until we as men create this new conversation. So I'm promoting that all men are capable of creating monogamous relationships. The question is, are they willing to learn how to do that? Because monogamy is a learned behavior, in my opinion. It's not something that's encoded in our DNA. Every human being can learn to be monogamous and fulfilled in their relationships. But it takes effort. So the question becomes, what are you willing to do to create true, authentic connections with another human being. The only place you have to look is with your own heart and your own mind. And once you can figure that out, I can assure you, you will create relationships that last and are rewarding and fulfilling. So think about it. Post your comments below. Let me know what you think. See you next video.